A tense family dinner, a friendly church group, a helpful ride for a stranger. These are the ordinary moments we all experience. But hidden just beneath the surface of each one is a chilling truth. You can never truly know the darkness that lies within the people around you, or what danger is waiting in the shadows of your own home. I tried to be optimistic for my dad's sake. He had remarried, and I wanted to make an effort. So, when Thanksgiving rolled around, I agreed to drive down. It was only about 90 minutes away, so I just planned a day trip. His new wife came as a package deal with her 2 sons, aged 13 and 18. I hadn't spent any real time with them. When they got married, Dad offered to sell our childhood home and buy a new, bigger place for their new combined family. He wanted a house where my sister and I would have room when we visited, but she insisted on keeping his house. She said it was a nice neighborhood, but the house was way too small. We figured out later the hard way that she just didn't want us visiting at all. I got there around mid-morning. The vibe in the house was off, tense. I went to the kitchen and asked the one question you ask on Thanksgiving. "What can I do to help?" Without even looking up, she snapped, "I don't need any help." Okay. I spent the next few hours sitting on the couch with my new stepbrothers, watching the parade on TV. They just grunted and stared at the screen. It was incredibly awkward. Around noon, she yelled from the kitchen for her oldest son to come carve the turkey. My dad, trying to be the host in his own home, stood up. "I'll get it, honey," he said. I watched him start to carve. He made the first cut and stopped. "This isn't done," he said, frowning. "It's still pink inside." She got defensive immediately. "Well, the oven must be broken then." It was a brand new oven. Dad had the whole kitchen redone the year before, but no one argued. The turkey went back in for another 30 minutes. When we finally sat down, it just felt wrong. Growing up, our family dinners were an event. The table was always set, drinks poured. This time, we all sat down at a half-set table and realized there was nothing to drink. She huffed and stomped back to the kitchen, yelling over her shoulder, "Well, what does everyone want? Tea? Soda?" It was a mess. No one said grace. We just started passing the food. I won't go into detail, but the meal was awful. Most of it was either cold from a can or just plain weird. There was this orange mush that I spat into my napkin. Rutabagas, apparently. The turkey was cooked finally, but had 0 seasoning. It was like eating a dry sponge. But the food wasn't the worst part. It was the manners. I watched in horror as my stepmother and her sons leaned all the way back in their chairs, balancing on the 2 back legs. Those weren't just any chairs. They were antiques. My late mom and I had found them at a garage sale and refinished them ourselves. They were wooden with delicate cane seats. And here these people were, treating them like lawn furniture, one good lean away from snapping them in half. I just kept thinking of all the rules I grew up with. Napkin in your lap, pass don't reach. These people were animals. When everyone had pushed their terrible food around their plates enough, I looked around for the best part. "Is there pie?" I asked. The new wife started clearing plates. "I didn't make any dessert. No one really needs it. I just wanted to leave." I had a cup of coffee, and as I was taking the last sip, she stood over me. "I know you probably want to get back to school," she said. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a dismissal. "You don't have to hit me over the head." I got the message. I said my goodbyes to my dad, hugged him, and got out of there. I was driving home feeling hollow and angry, just glad the day was over. I'd been on the road for maybe an hour, back in my own city, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number from my dad's area code. "Hello? Is this the daughter of Robert Miller?" A professional voice asked. My stomach turned to ice. "Yes, this is. This is St. Mary's Hospital. You need to come here immediately. Your father is in critical condition." I don't remember the drive back. I just remember the red and white lights of the emergency room entrance. I ran in screaming my dad's name. A nurse grabbed my arm and pulled me into a small, sterile room. He was on the table. I got there just in time to see the doctor stop CPR and shake his head. He was gone. I think I collapsed. The nurse helped me into a chair. "What happened?" I said. "Was it a heart attack?" "The turkey?" The nurse looked at me with so much pity that it made me sick. "No, honey. Your father was stabbed multiple times in the chest." My brain just stopped. "Stabbed? Where? How?" "He was conscious for a few minutes when the ambulance brought him in," she said, her voice low. "Someone found him on the side of the road, but he told us he was sleeping in his bedroom when a man attacked him. He said he woke up in the hospital." Sleeping in his bedroom? That made no sense. He was found on the road. Just then, the emergency room doors slid open and my stepmother walked in. She wasn't crying. She wasn't running. She looked annoyed, like she'd been called in for a parking ticket. "Where were you?" I screamed, jumping up. She flinched, finally showing some emotion. "What do you mean? We got your call. We were looking for him." "What are you talking about?" "Your father," she said, her voice suddenly shaky and very fake. "He asked me to go for a walk with him to walk off the dinner. We went outside, but then he just never came back. We were searching everywhere." The nurse and I locked eyes. I turned back to my stepmother, my whole body shaking with a cold I'd never felt before. "He went for a walk?" I said, my voice quiet. "That's funny, because the nurse just told me he was conscious when he got here, and he told them he was attacked in his bed." The color drained from her face. I had never seen real, pure fear on someone before. She knew she was caught. She hadn't expected him to live long enough to talk. The police were already on their way. Her story fell apart in 5 minutes. There was no forced entry at the house. When the police searched the master bedroom, they found blood stains under the mattress, on the carpet, and obvious sloppy cleanup attempts in the bathroom. She folded under questioning. It wasn't a random attack. It wasn't even a robbery. She had hired a homeless man to do it. The plan was for him to sneak in after I left, kill my dad in his sleep, and she would discover him in the morning. She offered the guy $5,000, but the man botched it. My dad fought back. The guy panicked, stabbed him, and ran. My dad, bleeding to death, must have crawled or stumbled out of the house trying to get help, which is where he was found on the road. Her motive? His company, his assets, his life insurance. She wanted it all, and she didn't want to wait. And she definitely didn't want him to leave anything to me or my sister. That whole Thanksgiving, the awful food, the tension, her rudeness, it was all an act. She wasn't just being a bad host. She was being a murderer. She was pushing me out the door, counting the minutes until I was gone so she could get on with her real plan for the holiday. I'm 36 now, but this happened when I was 19, maybe 20. I was living in Truro, Nova Scotia. I was in that weird limbo after high school, not in university, working a crappy retail job and just feeling completely, totally lost. I didn't have many friends, and my family was in a different province. I was lonely, and I guess I was looking for something. That's how I found this church. It wasn't one of the big old-fashioned ones. It was a community church that met in a rented hall. At first, it seemed perfect. Everyone was so friendly. People smiled, they hugged, and they invited me for coffee right after my first service. Felt like I'd found a family. But after a few weeks, something started to feel off. It's hard to explain. The smiles seemed a little too wide, a little too fixed. The way everyone agreed with the pastor, nodding at the same time. It felt less like a community and more like a club with rules I hadn't learned yet. It just felt a bit cult-like. Still, I was lonely, so I kept going. I even joined one of the weekly Bible studies. That's where I met Brandon and Martha. They were in their early 30s, I guess, and they really took me under their wing. Martha was kind, if a little intense, about a clean life. But Brandon, from day one, Brandon made me uncomfortable. He was the husband and he was a leader in the group. He had this way of looking at me. It wasn't just a glance. He would watch me. I'd be listening to the pastor and I'd just feel it. You know that feeling of being stared at? I'd look over and Brandon's eyes would be locked right on me. He wouldn't even look away when I caught him. He'd just give the slow, faint smile. It made my skin crawl. But I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. He was a good church guy, right? I was just the new kid. The Bible study group was big on confession. They called it sharing your burdens to be set free. They'd go around the circle and everyone would admit to a struggle. So when it was my turn, I shared. I was embarrassed, but I was desperate to change my life. I told them I didn't have a drinking problem or anything like that, but that I was lost. I confessed that I was spending all my time and what little money I had at this all-ages underground music venue downtown. It was called the Downstairs, just a grimy, dark basement where they had punk and metal bands. I told them I went every single Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night just to be in the crowd and feel the noise because I couldn't stand being alone in my empty apartment. I told them I felt guilty, like I was wasting my life in this dark place, and that I really wanted to stop. I wanted help. Everyone was so supportive. They all said they'd pray for me. Martha put her hand on my shoulder and told me God had a better path. But when I looked at Brandon, he had that look again. Not a kind one. It was a hungry look, a knowing one, and he smiled. A few weeks went by. I was really trying. I'd skipped a couple of weekends at the Downstairs. Then I heard that Martha was going on a 3-day women's retreat with the church. I was feeling extra lonely that Friday, and the urge to just go and not be alone was overwhelming. Caved. I told myself one night wouldn't hurt, and I went back to the Downstairs. The place was packed. The music was so loud you could feel it in your teeth. I got a soda and just leaned against the back wall watching the mosh pit. I felt guilty, but also relieved to just be somewhere. And then I felt it, that same crawling skin feeling from church. I scanned the crowd and my heart just dropped into my stomach. He was there. Brandon. He was standing by the sound booth just watching me. He wasn't dressed for a punk show. He was in his usual clean, pressed button-down shirt and slacks. He looked completely out of place and he was just staring at me with that same awful smile. He saw me see him and he started walking over. He moved through the crowd and I was frozen. Couldn't believe it. He got right up to me. The music was deafening. So he leaned in until his mouth was right next to my ear. I knew I'd find you here, he said. His breath was hot and smelled like peppermint. I tried to pull back. What are you doing here, Brandon? I was worried about you, he said, not moving back. He put his hand on my arm, his fingers gripping me. This place is not good for your soul. You know that. I'm fine, I said, trying to pull my arm away, but he held on tight. You're not fine, he said. He started to crowd me, using his body to push me back from the main room into the darker, narrow hallway that led to the bathrooms. People were pushing past us, but no one was paying attention. You're all alone. Martha's not here tonight, you know? He said it like we were sharing a secret. I know, I said. My voice was shaking. I have to go. No, he said. His hand slid from my arm up to my shoulder, his thumb rubbing my neck. I'm here to help you. I can save you from this. He leaned in closer, his face just inches from mine. We should go somewhere quiet. We can pray together. Just you and me. My car is right outside. I tried to push him, but he was a lot stronger than me. He pressed me against the wall. Or we could go back to my place. It's empty. We can talk about your soul. He wasn't asking. He was telling me. The way he said soul made me feel sick. He was trying to get me to go into the men's bathroom with him. He was pushing me toward the door. Come on, just for a minute. Let's pray. Something in me just snapped. It was pure panic. I shoved him hard with both hands in his chest. He wasn't expecting it and stumbled back into a couple of people. He looked shocked and then he looked furious. I didn't wait. I turned and ran. I shoved my way through the crowd, out the main door, and onto the street. I ran the entire 10 blocks back to my apartment without looking back once. I locked my deadbolt, put a chair under the doorknob, and sat in my kitchen, shaking for the rest of the night. I didn't go to church that Sunday. I was terrified. On Monday, I finally got the courage to call the pastor. I was crying so hard I could barely talk. I told him everything. How Brandon had followed me, how he'd cornered me, what he said, how he touched me, how he tried to get me to go in the bathroom and then to his empty house. There was this long, cold silence on the other end of the line. Then the pastor said, Brother Brandon, are you sure you understood him correctly? Brandon is a foundational member of this church, a good man. He and Martha are pillars of our community. He actually mentioned to me that he was worried about you, that he felt led to go find you, to pull you out of that den of sin you're drawn to. He didn't try to help me. I was almost screaming. He was a predator. He tried to. I think you're overwrought. The pastor cut me off. You admitted that you're drawn to dark places and that you're struggling. Perhaps you're confused. Perhaps you misinterpreted his brotherly concern. Or maybe you invited his attention. These are the things that happen in those kinds of places. I just went numb. He didn't believe me. He was blaming me. I hung up the phone. I never went back to that church. I never spoke to any of them again. The scariest part of all of it? About a month later, I was in the grocery store in the cereal aisle. I turned the corner and there they were, Brandon and Martha. Martha saw me and gave me that big, bright church smile and waved. "We've missed you," she called out. Brandon just stood beside her holding the cart. He didn't smile. He just stared at me. That same cold, empty, knowing stare. I didn't say anything. I just dropped my basket and walked right out of the store. I moved out of Truro 6 months later. I still think about that look. It wasn't a monster or a ghost. It was just a man and everyone was on his side. This happened a long, long time ago, back in 1970. I was 15 years old. You have to understand, things were different then. My home life wasn't great. My parents, well, let's just say they weren't paying much attention. So when summer came, I just left. Grabbed a backpack with a change of clothes and a few bucks and stuck out my thumb. I planned to see Northeast Quebec. Why? Just because. I'd been hitchhiking for a few weeks. You get good at reading people. You learn who to take rides from and who to avoid. Or at least you think you do. I was on a long, empty stretch of road, hours from any real town. The logging trucks were few and far between. I was getting eaten alive by black flies when this big, beat-up station wagon rolled to a stop. It had American plates. Inside were 4 guys. They looked to be in their mid-20s. They had long, stringy hair, and they wore old army fatigue jackets. The car smelled like stale beer and sweat. "Where are you headed, kid?" the driver asked. He had a thick accent. "North," I said. "Whatever way you're going. We're headed north. Hop in." I threw my bag in the back and squeezed in. The guy next to me didn't even move, just stared out the window. The driver, let's call him Red, was the only one who talked. The other 3 were just quiet. A heavy, angry kind of quiet. I learned pretty quickly they were vets. They didn't say it, but they talked about the war and the jungle in a way that wasn't like on TV. They were angry at everything. Angry at the government, angry at the cops, angry at the world, and they were drinking something. I just kept my mouth shut. I was a 15-year-old kid, and these were grown men. I figured I'd ride with them to the next town and then make an excuse to get out. In the back, half covered by a sleeping bag, I saw the wooden stocks of at least 2 rifles. This was Quebec, so hunting rifles weren't strange, but something about these guys having them made my stomach tighten. We drove for hours. The sun started to get low and Red decided we'd stop for the night. We pulled into a provincial park, one of those cheap campgrounds with gravel pads for RVs and a patch of dirt for tents. We were the only ones in the tenting section. We pulled the car in and started pulling our gear out. I didn't have a tent, just a bedroll which I planned to use under a tree. That's when the ranger showed up. He was an older guy, maybe in his late 50s, in a neat brown uniform. He pulled up in a little electric golf cart. He spoke to us in French first, then switched to accented English when he saw the plates. "Welcome, gentlemen. I just need to collect the site fee for the night." Red stood up. He was a big guy and he towered over the ranger. "We'll pay in the morning," Red said. "Not asked," said. The ranger shook his head, polite but firm. "I'm sorry, sir, but the policy is that you must pay on arrival. It's $10. Red stared at him. The other 3 guys had stopped what they were doing. They were just watching. The silence was heavy. "We don't have it right now," Red lied. I'd seen him flash a roll of cash at a gas station earlier. The ranger sighed. He looked tired. "Then I'm afraid I have to ask you to leave the park." "We're not leaving," another guy said, the skinny one from the back seat. The ranger looked from Red to the skinny guy. He was 1 man and we were 4. Well, 5, but I didn't count. He must have done the math. "Look," the ranger said. I don't want trouble. I'm gonna make my rounds. I'll be back in 30 minutes. If you don't have the fee, you have to be gone. Okay? He didn't wait for an answer. He got in his cart and drove off. His little electric motor just a quiet whir in the twilight. The second he was out of sight, the mood changed. It went from angry to cold. That pig, Red muttered. He'll be back, the skinny guy said. He'll bring the cops. No, he won't, Red said. He walked to the back of the station wagon and pulled the sleeping bag off the rifles. He picked one up, checked the action. My blood went cold. I wasn't a part of their group. I was just there. He comes back, Red said. He doesn't leave. They started planning it. Not like in a movie. It was quiet, matter of fact. They talked about it like they were planning to chop wood. He'll come from that loop, the skinny guy said, pointing to the gravel path. You get in those trees, Red. I'll stay by the car. When he stops, you take him. What about the kid? One of them asked, nodding at me. I froze. My heart felt like it was going to break out of my chest. Red looked at me. A long, empty look. The kid's fine. He's with us. Aren't you, kid? I just nodded. I couldn't speak. They were going to kill this man. Park ranger. Over $10. I realized then that it wasn't about the money. They just wanted to. They were broken, and I was stuck in the middle of nowhere with them. I thought about running, just bolting into the woods. But it was dark now and they had rifles in the car. I wouldn't get a mile. I had to do something. We waited 10 minutes, 20. Every sound in the woods made me jump. Then I heard it. The faint whir of the golf cart. It was coming back. Red nodded at the skinny guy and they both moved. Red melted into the trees at the edge of the campsite, the rifle held low. The skinny guy stood by the car, his hand in his jacket pocket. The cart's headlight cut through the trees. It was getting closer. I didn't think, I just acted. I stood up and ran from the campsite, waving my hands right into the middle of the gravel path. The ranger slammed on the brakes, skidding a little. He looked terrified. Son, what's wrong? Get out of the road. I ran right up to his cart. I was breathing so hard I could barely talk. You have to go, I hissed. I was almost crying. You have to go right now. What are you talking about? They have guns, I said, pointing back at the campsite. They're waiting for you. They're going to kill you. Please just go. Don't come back. He looked past me into the darkness of the site. He must have seen something, a shadow, the glint of the rifle. His face went white. He didn't say thank you. He didn't say another word. He jammed the cart into reverse, spun it around in the gravel, and was gone. He didn't even turn his headlight back on. He just vanished into the dark. I stood there for a second, shaking. Then I had to walk back. It was the longest walk of my life. Back to the campsite. Back to them. Red stepped out of the woods. The skinny guy took his hand out of his pocket. They were both staring at me. Where'd he go? Red demanded. My mind was racing. I don't know, I stammered. I went to use the bathroom in the woods. When I came back, he was just driving away fast. I think he got scared. Red stared at me. He was trying to figure out if I was lying. Felt like an hour, but it was probably 10 seconds. I was sure he was going to hit me or worse. Then he just laughed. Coward, he spat. He threw the rifle back in the car. Probably went to call the cops. We should go, the skinny guy said. We're not going anywhere, Red said. Let him come. But no one came. We sat there all night. I didn't sleep. I just sat with my back against a tree, watching them, flinching at every noise. The craziest part, the part that really sticks with me, is that I stayed with them. When the sun came up, they packed up the car and I got back in. I didn't know what else to do. I was 15 years old in the middle of nowhere, and I had just stopped them from killing a man. If I tried to leave, what would they do to me? I had seen who they were. I rode in that car with them for 2 more days. It was the worst 2 days of my life. Pure, silent terror. Every time we stopped for gas, every time we pulled over on the side of the road, I thought, this is it. They're going to take me into the woods. They never mentioned the ranger again. They just drank and drove, wrapped in that same heavy, Angry silence. On the third day, we pulled into a small town to get food. Red gave me $5 and told me to go into the general store and get bread and soda. I took the $5. I walked into the store and I never looked back. I walked straight through the store, out the back door, and just ran. I ran until my lungs burned. I hid in a ditch by the highway for an hour watching the road. I never saw that station wagon again. I saved that ranger's life. I'm sure of it. But I also saved myself. Years ago, back in the early 90s, I got hired as seasonal help at Toys R Us. It was right around the holiday rush, and the store was this massive warehouse-style place with everything stacked in long, straight aisles that seemed to go on forever. No fancy displays or kids' zones like they have now, just shelves packed with toys, games, and bikes hanging from the ceiling. I was 19, fresh out of high school, and needed cash for college. They stuck me in aisle 1, which had board games on one side, stuff like Monopoly and Chutes and Ladders, and on the other side, this big glass case full of video games. That was the hot spot because the Super Nintendo had just come out. We had a demo unit behind the glass with a controller sticking out through a hole so kids could play Super Mario World right there in the store. People were losing their minds over it, lines forming just to take a turn. My shifts were mostly stocking shelves and helping customers find stuff. It was chaotic, especially on weekends. Parents dragging screaming kids around, carts piled high with Barbies and action figures. The air always smelled like plastic and popcorn from the little snack area up front. I remember the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, making everything look a bit washed out. Black Friday was coming up, but this incident happened a couple of weeks before during a big sale weekend. The store was packed, music playing holiday tunes on loop, and everyone seemed on edge, hunting for deals. I was up on a ladder that day restocking the board games. We had these crocodile dentist games that were flying off the shelves. Kids loved pressing the teeth until the crock snapped shut. I was pulling down a few more boxes from the top shelf when I heard yelling from the video game side. At first, I thought it was just kids arguing over whose turn it was, which happened all the time. But then it got louder with shoving sounds and high-pitched shouts. I looked down and there were these two boys, maybe 10 or 11 years old, right in front of the SNES demo. One had the controller jumping around as Mario, and the other was trying to yank it away. "It's my turn, you hog!" the second kid yelled. They started pushing each other, chests bumping, faces red. Their parents were nearby, one dad with a shopping cart full of toys, including a baseball bat that must have been from the sports aisle, and the other guy with his kid and a wife standing back. The parents jumped in quickly. The bat guy's wife said something like, "Hey, control your brat." And the other dad shot back, "Your kid started it." Before I knew it, the dads were in each other's faces, pointing fingers and spitting words. I froze on the ladder for a second, not sure what to do. We weren't trained for fights. The manager usually handled that. I started climbing down, yelling, "Hey guys, calm down." But they ignored me. That's when it escalated. The bat dad grabbed his kid by the arm and tried to pull him away. But the other boy swung a punch and hit him in the side. The bat dad lost it. He reached into his cart, grabbed that aluminum bat, and swung it hard. It connected with the other dad's back with this sickening thud, like hitting a melon. The guy stumbled forward, arms flailing, and crashed right into the glass display case. The whole thing shattered, glass exploding everywhere, shards flying like rain. He went down in a heap, blood starting to pool under him from cuts on his arms, face, and neck. One big piece had sliced across his eye. I could see the gash, deep and ugly, blood pouring out. People screamed. Kids nearby started crying. I hit the ground running, my heart pounding. The manager, this older guy named Frank, came sprinting from the registers. "Stop! Security!" he shouted. But we didn't have real security back then, just a traffic cop outside for the parking lot. The bat dad looked shocked, like he didn't mean to go that far. He dropped the bat, grabbed his two kids, one under each arm, and bolted for the doors, knocking over a display of puzzles on the way. Frank and another employee tried to block him at the exit, yelling for him to stop. Customers just stared or backed away. The cop outside heard the commotion and came in, radio crackling. He was a big guy, probably used to holiday crowds. He tackled the bat dad near the doors, wrestling him to the floor. The kids were wailing, "Daddy!" as the cop pinned him down. The dad resisted, twisting and kicking. So the cop started laying into him, punches to the ribs, knee on his back. It was rough. Blood from the dad's nose smeared on the tile. They cuffed him, eventually dragged him out to the squad car while more police showed up. Back in the aisle, it was a nightmare. The injured guy was moaning on the floor, glass crunching under the paramedics' boots when they arrived a few minutes later. His kid, a little girl maybe 7, was sitting there sobbing, holding his hand. Blood was everywhere, on the broken case, the floor, even splattered on some NES cartridges nearby. EMS worked on him, bandaging the cuts, but that eye was mangled. I heard later from Frank that he lost it completely. Nerve damage or something. Had to have surgery, but it was gone. The messed up part, the thing that still haunts me, was how the other customers acted. While the paramedics were stabilizing the guy, people started picking through his abandoned cart. It was right there, full of toys he'd been buying. A woman grabbed a Barbie dollhouse from it and just walked off like nothing happened. Another guy took a stack of board games, saying to his wife, "Hey, these are on sale anyway." No one stopped them. Everyone was too stunned or distracted. The little girl noticed and started crying harder. "That's our stuff." But no one cared. Then there was this one lady, middle-aged with her own bratty kid in tow. She saw the demo SNES in the wreckage, the one with blood spots on the console from the glass cuts. She reached in, glass crunching under her shoes, and tried to pull it out. "Is this for sale now? My son wants one," she said to me like it was no big deal. I was standing there shaking, trying to sweep up shards with a broom Frank handed me. "Ma'am, you can't take that. It's evidence or something," I stammered. She argued, "But it's just sitting there, and we drove all the way here." Frank had to come over and tell her to back off before she finally huffed away. The store shut down the demo after that. They locked up the SNES units tight. You had to ask a manager to open the case just to look at one. Sales dropped in video games for a bit, but people forgot quickly. The holidays kept rolling and Black Friday was even worse. Fights over Tickle Me Elmo or whatever was hot that year. But me, that day changed everything. Seeing how fast things turned violent over a stupid game, how people turned into animals for cheap plastic crap, it stuck with me. I quit after the season ended. Couldn't stomach the crowds anymore. These days, I stay home on Black Friday, order stuff online if I need it. No way I'm stepping into a store during the rush. People are heartless when it comes to deals. They'll step over a bleeding man just to save a few bucks. It was around 2 a.m. when we finally pulled into our driveway after a 2-week road trip to the Grand Canyon. My husband Tom, our 2 kids, Emily, who's 10, and Jack, who's 7, and I were all exhausted. The kids had slept most of the drive back from Arizona, but Tom and I took turns behind the wheel to make it home without stopping at another motel. Our dog, Buddy, a golden retriever we'd left with a neighbor, was already back in the house thanks to her dropping him off earlier that evening. She texted us that everything looked fine. The street was quiet, just the usual suburban neighborhood in Ohio. Rows of similar 2-story houses with yards and driveways. No street lights right in front of our place, so it was pretty dark except for the motion light on our garage that flickered on when we parked. We started unloading right away because we didn't want to deal with it in the morning. Tom popped the trunk of our SUV and the kids grabbed their backpacks and some smaller bags. I took a couple of suitcases up to the porch to unlock the front door. Buddy must have heard us because he started barking from inside the house. His usual excited yaps. But then it changed. He let out this low growl and I could hear him scratching at the window in the living room which looks out over the driveway. I was on the porch fumbling with the keys when I glanced over. He was standing on his hind legs, paws up on the sill, staring straight up at the second-floor window. Our bedroom window, actually. I looked up too and my heart skipped a beat. There was a shape in the window like the outline of a person standing there. It was backlit a bit from the hallway light we'd left on a timer, so it was just a dark silhouette, tall and still like a man watching us. No details, just the head and shoulders clear against the glass. I froze for a second, then called out to Tom in a whisper yell, "Tom, come here. Look at the window." He was bent over the trunk, handing a bag to Emily, but he straightened up and walked over to the porch. "What?" he asked, sounding annoyed from being tired. "Up," I pointed. "In our bedroom window. Do you see that?" He squinted, and I saw his face change. "Yeah, what the hell?" The kids were still by the car, not paying attention. Thank God. Buddy was going nuts now, barking louder. We stood there for maybe 10 seconds, just staring. The figure didn't move. It was creepy. But then Tom shrugged. "It's probably that coat rack in the corner. You know, the one with your winter jacket on it. The lights hitting it weird from the hall." I thought about it. We do have a tall wooden coat stand in the bedroom right near the window. I'd hung a few things on it before we left. "Yeah, maybe," I said, feeling a little dumb. "The angle from down here makes it look like a person." We both laughed it off. That nervous kind of laugh when you're overtired. The kids called out asking if they could go inside, so I unlocked the door. Buddy rushed out to greet us, tail wagging, but he kept glancing back at the stairs. We brought in the bags, locked the car, and headed up to bed. The house felt normal. Same musty smell from being closed up, but nothing out of place downstairs. When we got to the bedroom, I flipped on the light and looked right at the window. The coat rack, a tense family dinner, a friendly church group, a helpful ride for a stranger. These are the ordinary moments we all experience. But hidden just beneath the surface of each one is a chilling truth. You can never truly know the darkness that lies within the people around you, or what danger is waiting in the shadows of your own home. These stories remind us that the world isn't divided into monsters and heroes. Often, the most terrifying threats come from everyday people. A stepmother, a church leader, a quiet hitchhiker, or even an unseen presence in the dark. They teach us that trust is fragile, and that sometimes, the most important thing you can do is save yourself.